Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. I'm joined with my good friend Arnold from BrainGym.fitness. So, Arnold, you might flick through there and we'll tell people what we're going to discuss this week.
Absolutely. So,
UK government banning the sun, protests in Ireland, possible war, India, Pakistan, UK access to Apple data, and 10 countries reinstate their border checks.
we get some nice pictures as usual.
AI writing law and mechanize full automation of all work. Good news, Caravan, European Peace Project, and Religious Celebrations. Health, stop buying pre-cut fruits. Why call food organic? Sugary drinks, DSM labels, and the benefit of saunas. Xiaomi, how do you pronounce that one, Arnold?
Xiaomi.
Xiaomi. one phone per second, and WEF new leader and the battle of the brain. So we've got plenty of nice pictures for you.
Yeah.
So let's begin. Well, I mean, I'm out today doing pictures. It's strange when you're actually saying banning the sun, because I like sun gazing, and I look out this morning and I just see about 10 trails in front of the sun, and it's like they're basically taking the piss this stage now by doing that, because it's like, even if you weren't looking at it, if you're a sun gazer, you'd see it now.
Yeah, well, and that is already officially announced that in the next few weeks, maybe even next week, the UK government will officially ban the sun. Banning the sun means blocking the sun by spraying chemicals into the air. Yeah, there's a startup called Make Sunsets. They're launching weather balloons filled with sulfur dioxide, and which is the same pollutant that causes acid rain into the stratosphere, and they call it a climate action. Yeah, so it's a climate action that we are blocking the sun. And they even say they will be selling cooling credits like carbon offsets while polluting the air with zero public consent. Yeah, so they're just going to do this. I think they put in 50 million pounds, just people spraying poison into the air, so you won't see the sun anymore, which is a saying, well, that you die. But it's like, maybe this is kind of metaphorically speaking that's going to happen, because if we block the sun, how are our vegetables supposed to grow? What will it impact our health? All these things, they're not considering. They're just going to block the sun.
And we previously mentioned it under the Freedom of Information. Like, they already said they were blocking the sun for climate change. And the thing is, they push all these solar panels for people, which spend a lot of time. I mean, the repayment, it's not as if it's 3 years. Some of them are 10 years plus. And they're even made that they're only something like 15% efficient. So that's something that I've come across as well. But not only that, no, they'll have less because the sun is going to be blocked. So this is my beautiful home country. Anti-immigration protests and counter-protests take place in the Dublin city centre. The demonstrations were centred around opposition to immigration policies, with protesters expressing concerns about the impact of immigration on local communities. This reflects ongoing tensions in Ireland regarding immigration and the provision of emergency accommodation for asylum seekers. It was notably influenced by former UFC star Conor McGregor, who was a prominent figure at the event, and the counter-protesters demonstrate was organised by the United Against Racism group, and they positioned themselves outside the GPO, which is the General Post Office in Dublin. And all I'd say is, for those that are actually anti, every time somebody comes in, let's put them into their house and we'll see how fast they are outside protesting. And I have seen my country go to the dogs because it's like they're just leaving in everybody. There's some small towns that they've left in more people that actually live in the towns. They're putting them next to schools, and the amount of abuse and everything has gone through the roof, and people just had enough. So it's good that they're sticking up for this. Will that happen? I don't know, but watch this space. I'll keep an eye on it. So next one is, yeah, this is one that's a bit concerning because we're both Apple users. I mean, me with my phone, you with your device and phone, I believe. So has the UK government been given access to Apple users' data? The UK government has not been directly granted access to Apple user data, but there have been significant developments and disputes regarding the issue. The government demanded access under the Investigatory Powers Act, IPA, also known as the Snoopers Charter. The UK government has the authority to compel companies to provide access to encrypted data. This includes potentially requiring companies like Apple to weaken encryption or create backdoors. Reports suggest that the UK government has issued a technical capacity notice, TCN, to Apple demanding the ability to access encrypted user data. However, the government has not confirmed or denied the existence of the order. Apple's response: Apple has strongly opposed these demands, stating that it has never created a backdoor or master key for any government and does not allow direct access to its servers. In response to the UK government's pressure, Apple has removed its advanced data protection features for UK users. This feature provides end-to-end encryption for iCloud data, ensuring that only the account holder could access their data. Without ADP, Apple can access certain user data and share it with law enforcement if presented with a warrant. Privacy concerns. Privacy advocates, including organisations like Liberty and Privacy International, have criticised the UK government's actions, arguing that forcing Apple to weaken encryption would harm our users' privacy and set a dangerous precedent for other countries. Critics also warn that weakening encryption could expose user data to bad actors, not just governments. Current status: while Apple has complied with some aspects of the UK's demand, e.g. disabling ADP for UK users, it has not created a backdoor or provided unrestricted access to its servers. The dispute over encryption and user privacy is ongoing, with Apple continuing to resist efforts to weaken its security measures. I mean, I talked last week about BitChute and they're pulling out. That isn't good that they're doing that. So that's scary. So like the UK is doing a lot of dangerous stuff at the moment.
Yeah, in many respects, but this looks a bit, maybe a lot the same as what happened to Telegram a few months ago, where the founder, he was arrested when he was in Paris, and they put him in jail for a long time, and now he's free again, I think. But they forced him to open up Telegram in the same way as Apple is now being forced to open up in the UK. So they're doing everywhere the same.
Yeah. So the next one is the war, India and Pakistan.
Yeah, before we get to this picture, there are a lot of videos, things about it's a dispute which is going on since the separation from the British Empire, that about Kashmir, which is a region in northern part of India. And both countries claim that area. And now there was what they say, a terrorist attack last week where 26 people were killed. And now there are pictures where you see all kinds of armed trucks, tanks, everything, from both bringing their armies to the border to maybe and hopefully not start fighting, because both of them are nuclear arms. Yeah, Pakistan and India have nuclear arms, so it looks pretty ugly. And let's hope that they can find some peace talks or something, and instead of starting fighting.
And I don't know, has that got any correlation with because I've been told they're protesting outside McDonald's and all these other corporations because of Israel. So is there the bigger boys pulling the string organizing this? Who knows? So this one, Schengen travel alert. 10 countries reinstate the border checks in 2025. I'll have the link, which will show all the details. Recently, 10 Schengen countries have brought back international border checks, changing how tourists and travelers move across Europe. There's a complete list country by country, but it's basically like you're going to have bring in your identity, your travel documents and everything. There's 22 European members in the Schengen. I mean, there's not like me naming them, but there's non-EU ones as well, like Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. And they're saying the main one is like the things they're saying is high migration influx, and then ongoing terror threats and public event security. So, like, basically, they're opening the borders, leaving in all these. It looks to me like criminals are emptying their prisons, and then they're creating havoc. And who's the people that suffer for this? It's us, Arnold, when we're traveling. Is we have to go through all this crap. They've already left in all these nut jobs. So they're in all the different countries creating havoc, and they're pretending it's for security measures. But what it means is when you're traveling from one country and another, add on another hour. I remember when I was going from Poland to Lviv, I don't know, was it 6 hours we had to wait in border control? So border control drives me crazy, this. Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah,
like,
but also think about the professional transport sector, which
no, exactly. They don't get away with it. Like they have to go through all that. Like they have a hard enough job as
that
it
will
is.
add. If well, suppose you're supposed to go some goods from Poland to the Netherlands, that will add an extra day of travel, which means extra cost.
Exactly. They don't take it on the chin. So the 10 countries, just for those listening: Germany, France, Netherlands, Austria, Italy, Slovenia, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Bulgaria, which is recently after getting partial entry in January of this year. AI, your baby, writing law. Well, I mean, I have plenty of law experience, having over 100 court cases. So explain what's going on there.
Yeah, well, this is the picture of the United Arab Emirates, so in the Middle East. They have plans to become the first nation to integrate AI directly into its lawmaking process. So they establish a new government unit to oversee the transformation of how laws are written, how they are reviewed, and how they're updated. That might sound interesting, but that means who's the boss? Yeah, because
who programs?
The person who writes the law, who owns the law, which normally would be your government, yeah, and through a democratized process where people's voices are heard and counter arguments, and then a decision is made, and then we put it into a law. It's all gone. It's like AI will define the law. Yeah? So that is happening there.
And just on that, actually, because I always say how dangerous AI is, and a lot of times I got it lying and everything. So when I was doing kind of research for Good News Caravan, sometimes I tried to do searches, what's going on and everything. And you know what it came? The searches, when I actually asked for good news kind of websites to give positive stuff, I got BBC, CNN, and Fox News came up at the top of the search. So it's kind of the same on AI. People go away and do searches, and they're getting information, and they just take it as gospel. And it's like, I mean, anyway, the dog even knows that CNN and BBC and Fox News, they don't put positive information out there. It's all lies and negativity. So that's kind of when you put all your balls in the AI net, make sure that you're getting the right answer.
Well, it's even going to get worse because there was this week an announcement of a new startup by a guy called Tame Besiroglu. He launched a company called Meganize, and Meganize is developing virtual environments and training data to enable AI agents that can replace human workers for the full automation of all work. Means their goal is that all the work which humans are doing is going to be replaced by AI. And that was announced last week. They got a lot of money. They got a lot of investors already, and the market potential, well, which is logical if you think about that they are going to replace all the labor in the market. We're talking about a potential market of 60 trillion globally. So that will attract these investors because we're like, oh, wow, we're going to earn a lot of money. Yeah, but we're going to put most of the people, if not all of them, out of work. So this is, I think this is not good. Yeah,
and pension funds as well, right? Because a lot of the pension funds would be investing in this, but not really for the benefit of the people, because they're going to say, oh, it didn't make that much. You'd rarely see much increases in a pension fund, but they'll use the money. So that money from your pension could actually be taken out of your job. So just know where your pension fund is invested.
Yeah. But then we get into the CDBCs and everything, which is going to happen in October. So a lot of it is not safe. So we really need some change, folks, because this is not good. But fortunately, there is some good news. There are some things happening, which, first of all, is the European Peace Project. Had you heard about it, Roy?
No.
I came across this. It's an initiative. There's even a website. It's called European Peace Project.eu, where it's a citizens initiative which is going to happen on the 9th of May of this year, which is, well, in a few weeks. And day one is the citizen is like, well, it looks like our government is the only thing where they're interested is in a war with Russia and buying weapons and everything around it. Whereas we are Europe and the European Union because we want peace, we want democracy, freedom, and international understanding. So there is a manifesto written in all the languages of Europe. The idea is that manifesto is being presented and published and shown on the 9th of May at 5 p.m. I think it's Central European time. But that is everywhere. There's some nice artwork which is on that stuff. I took that from the site. So artists put on some artwork to attract people, and that we the citizens of Europe, that we basically take back control and say, hey, we are here in Europe together and we want peace.
Very good. So this is like, it's kind of religious celebrations, but so what happened is on Monday or Sunday, Easter celebrations, and the Sunday, the neighbor knew that I wasn't with my son because I have equal custody of my son. And he said, hey, you can't be on your own. Come in. So when I went in, there was over 20 people there. I wouldn't expect that. I thought maybe they might have their kids with him or whatever. You know, he's in his 70s and lovely, lovely neighbors. But there was like about 4 kids out playing the whole time. What I noticed is nobody on the whole day touched their phone. They were all just engaging in conversation and everything. And it was just a really nice day with loads of lovely food. But what I kind of thought is, like, even at Christmas, you know, like we make sure we get our family together and sit down. It's not about a religious thing. It's just about being together, having the laugh and a joke. And I see the same because I've got Muslim friends and Muslim partners, and there's EID, and they do that. And I can see actually they step away from their work and they're like, I'm not available. And so they really respect their traditions of sitting down. But it's like, I can even see the stress levels of the people that I deal with after it. They're relaxed and everything. So there's a massive benefit for your mental health and everything. It's irrespective of your religious beliefs. But just to be sitting with friends and family for the few days over these ceremonies, whether it's Easter, Passover, all the different things that they do, it's just to try not because you mightn't have that religious belief, but try to get into the circle where you're actually breaking bread with people and enjoying conversations and having fun.
Yeah, but Roy, why would you only limit that to these religious or spiritual
No,
celebrations?
you shouldn't. But what I'm saying, with
Why
the way
shouldn't
people are
people have?
working, that's the way we're conditioned. We do it like twice a year, and it's like sad. We should be doing it weekly, but even at
You
least
should do it
once a
every
month.
day.
Yeah,
You
I
do it
know.
every day, at least one meal where you
Well, I always do that
really.
with my son. We sit down, we eat together. But I mean, even for like the surrounding family and the whole lot gathering, it should be done because if you, how many of you left? You know, get marbles. What kind of is your expected age? Oh, we've only got X amount with if they live to say 90 or whatever. And it's like try to do it a lot more, not just these specific days.
Absolutely.
So pre-cut fruits. I mean, I saw in America
Yeah, other
the
help.
pen is cut in plastic paper, like so. I don't know in plastic. So I don't know is it about buying that, but what's that about?
Yeah, it's exactly that's what you see in supermarkets. It's actually shelf full of these projects which are put in plastic boxes. And when, but it's not about the plastic because all the fruit is pre-cut. It looks very nice and appetizing. It like mangoes and melons and grapes and everything or mixed. It looks all beautiful and nice. But have you ever tried if you have an apple, you cut open an apple and you leave it out there on your table, well, I don't know, let's say for an hour, what happens?
Goes
It becomes
brown.
brown. Yeah. That happens with a lot of fruit. Yeah? It starts to coloring because of the oxygen in the air and the connection. Yeah. But why is it then that all these fruits in the supermarket, in the shelves, they are there for days and they still look the same? That's because they spray it with a substance called chlorine. And now there's been quite a lot of research where chlorine has some very, very nasty effects on your health. And even right now, there are people reported dying from chlorine. And so it's another example of like we're focusing our laziness because people are too lazy to peel their own apple, or cut their own fruit, and they think, "Whoa, look at me! I eat fruit. I'm very healthy." It's not. I'm sorry. It's really not healthy because you get an ugly chemical, and most likely there are more chemicals involved that it stays looking nice for days. So stop using that.
And with the chlorine, like I just love taking my son swimming because there's a big aqua park here, and he just gets sick a lot. I sometimes, but it's like he was getting sick a lot, runny nose and everything. And I saw one person doing a test with the chlorine in the water, and they had it made it go yellow in a cup. And then he put his hand in and took out his hand and then put the same stuff into it, and it didn't turn yellow. He said the chlorine goes straight into your body. So whether you have a swimming pool or you're going to the baths, all that chlorine is going into you, and 100% is not healthy because I can see it myself. Even we want to go to the baths, and I said to him, "You know, you get sick every time you're there because they have chlorine." And he goes, "Yeah." So he decides no because he's realized it every time he goes there, even though they've got all the different jacuzzis and all the different things, and the slides and everything. We're because we eat so healthy, maybe that's why we get sick. But yeah, so if you're buying food with chlorine in it, yeah, you might as well just go to the baths and put your hand in the water, and you probably you're wondering why you're sick. So since we're still on food, I might as well go on to the next one, the organic. And this is an interesting one. I heard a guy talking about it, and I thought, yeah, this makes sense. It's like I go into the different things, and like when you look at the kind of organic sections or whatever, it's a tiny little part of the supermarket, which is kind of sad that so-called this is the healthy stuff. The rest, you basically say the rest is shite that's around it. But what he was saying is, and I 100% agree, it's like, why do we have to say it's organic? He said, why don't you just say carrot or tomato or whatever? And the other ones say chemical carrot, chemical tomato, and have a list of all the shite that's on it. And that would make more sense, because people are going in and they're purchasing on what looks like, just like what you just mentioned previously. They look in the plastic box, they're not even thinking about all the plastic waste, and they're going, "Oh, that looks nice." They don't, if it said on the box, "This has been sprayed with something that's going to affect your health," they wouldn't buy it. And that's the way it should be. So that's what I say with the organic. It's like, and the farmers have to go through so much rigmarole to have it certified organic. And there's nothing about these shitheads that are putting out stuff that's just sprayed with chemicals and toxic stuff. And then we're wondering why 95% are on tablets and sick is because of this. So we need to make change.
Yeah, and in addition to that, maybe just add a higher VAT tariff to non-organic food. Because now a lot of people cannot afford to buy organic because it's more expensive. So I think you should do it the other way around, have a higher VAT tariff on non-organic vegetables and fruit. In that way, you will push more farmers and people to produce organic food.
Yeah.
Sugary drinks. Yes, there has been a research that sugary sweetened beverages, and look at it, which are, I think, more than 90%, are linked to more than 300,000 deaf people annually, and contributed to 2.2 million new type 2 diabetes cases in 2020, representing about 1 in 10 cases globally. So the cause of people getting diabetes are these sugary drinks. Yeah, and that's everything from Coca-Cola to Red Bull to all these so-called energy drinks, or even like healthy smoothies, where it's all full of sugar. Yeah, and the sugary drinks cost the world 12.5 million healthy years of life in 2020, and are associated with 1.2 million new cardiovascular disease cases, or about 1 in 30. So I really recommend people stop drinking those sugary drinks. Yeah, and not even like Diet Coke or thing like that, because they could aspartame or some other sweetener in it from which you get cancer or any other ugly things. Don't drink that stuff, folks. It's not good for you.
And the aspartame, I mean, that was banned, and then they basically bribed senators or whatever and got it approved. And then they have all this trickery with the names, glucose, fructose, and all this kind of thing. And so people see sugar and they think, "Oh, there's not that much." They think the other ingredients are natural, and they're not. So it's laced with sugar.
Well, it's
DSM.
interesting that you talk about names. DSM Labels. The DSM stands for Diagnostic Statistic Manual. It is the manual in psychiatry, psychology, where people they describe symptoms and features, whether you are depressed, you have bipolar, whether you're schizophrenic. And I've seen those books. They look like, there are a couple, at least 2, maybe 3, that they look like in the old ways we used to have a phone book, yeah, where you have hard copy thing where you could look up the Roy Coughlan and his phone number. Yeah, so these really thick, they look big like this and really thick. Whatever. That is what these DSM books look like. So they're kind of the Bible for a lot of psychiatrists, because if they have to come up with, that's why it's called a diagnosis, is like they got to look at like depression. These are 10 descriptions where, and out of the 10 description, at least 8 you got to have. I know how it worked because that's what was done with my sister. Yeah. So it like, you add out of the 10 different features, you have to look at like, okay, you get at least 8, you are depressed. So that is what the DSM does, yeah, and describe. But that, from the DSM point of view, it's interesting because this already existed in 1952. in 1952, there was they had these labels, they had these names of so-called all these things which you could have. There were 106 labels in the DSM of 1952. Today, if you look at the number of labels, how much do you think there are, right?
Probably add 2 more zeros onto that first one.
Well, they're currently almost 300. Yeah, so that is 200 more. So in, what is it, in 60, 70 years, there are 200 more ways that you can be mentally ill. 200 more ways to find that you are mentally ill. Does that make sense? No, it totally doesn't make sense. It's like what we are doing is that we pathologize certain emotional conditions, and then we come up with medicine which you should use to treat those things. So it's an increase of possibilities of psychiatrists to prescribe you medicine of 200 different labels. Yeah. So that's why I have here in the picture, and for those only on audio, is like the greatest freedom isn't found in the right diagnostic label, yeah, those 300 right now, but it's found in the courageous act of reclaiming your sovereignty from those who profit from your limitation. Yeah? So it's the psychiatrists and the big pharma, they profit from you and say, oh, look, I have bipolar. Oh, look, I have this. Yeah, people see it like, oh, look, that's good for me. No, it's not good for you because these guys are making money and you are, well, it's proven what I said a few weeks ago. It doesn't help, those medicine. And in a lot of cases, making your situation worse because of all the side effects. On average, everything with an SSRI, which is prescribed especially for depression, there's something like 6 side effects where you need 6 different medicine to treat the side effects. Yeah, so this is totally crazy. So that the number of things which, yeah, I mentioned earlier is like ADHD, is like people can, or young, especially young people cannot have attention and they're busy and whatever and the energy. That is logical for young people. It's logical for young people if you sit them down, even very young folks behind the screen all day, whereas they should be running in the forest. Yeah, they have difficulty paying attention, and they have a lot of energy, and they want to express that energy. That is normal. Yeah, but now it's like, oh, you see, I found a label. Oh, you have this and this. Yeah, you're a bit busy. You cannot remember things. You cannot concentrate. Oh, you get ADHD. Here, you get a prescription. Huh? That means you become totally dependent on your prescriptions. And you're physically worse off than just dealing with your ADHD or your young kid. Huh?
The side effects you mentioned, 6 knock-on side effects. Then there's the side effects to them, and eventually it's death. And you see people are dying a lot sooner now than they used to be before. Okay, this one, to get rid of all this crappy stuff that we have, is the saunas. So I'm always using saunas. So they increase metabolism. They may support weight loss efforts, promotes detoxification through sweating, reduces cholesterol levels as stress hormone, improves symptoms of depression and anxiety, and increases overall happiness and energy levels. And like you've got the traditional Finnish ones, which is the wood burn stoves, or the electric ones. So I go to the gym and there's one of them there, and I use filtered water and I have Albus oil and I put it in, so it helps me breathe. I also wear a cap. You see the lady in the picture there has a towel on her head, but I have the cap, and I didn't do that for a while, and I used to have a big red face on me. So, the old brain gym.fitness, protect your brain. So that's one for the saunas as well. Have a little cap on your head. So, because the heat is fairly high. And then I've got an infrared one at home, and they're not that expensive. I mean, I have it over 10 years now, but I paid about €1,000. So maybe they could be 1,500 now, maybe two. But if you're using it every day and they last that long, it's not bad when you consider what they do. But the infrared is a deeper tissue penetration, and it's more comfortable for longer sessions, and it promotes skin health and collagen production. Also, it's like getting rid of all the toxins. So I'd highly encourage people, and you can double dip as well. Like sometimes, especially the infrared one, if you have a light, you can be reading a book, you can be listening to a podcast like this podcast, you could be listening away as you're inside in the sauna, enjoying it, or listening to nice meditation, like on my meditation podcast.org. So have a think about using a sauna if you're not already doing it.
Well, you're talking. The interesting thing is that a few weeks ago, I shared about what the happiest country in the world was, which was Finland. And Finland, I think, has the highest use. Or I think basically every household has its own sauna. So
exactly. So yeah,
it's an interesting combination.
exactly. Yeah. So
other topics. Yeah. There's a lot of discussion, and we're not going to do it because it's in the mainstream news, and then I think it's a total crazy circus anyway about the tariff war, and every day something is changing, and then it's go up, and then when they say doing it's go down, and whatever the crazy thing. But the main thing is, like, from a US perspective, is like, oh, we put more higher tariffs on these things, and then we'll take back the production of phones, and everything else is like, we're going to do that in make America great again. We're going to do that ourselves, and we'll create a lot of labor. That's the narrative, right? But the crazy thing is, China doesn't have a lot of labor into these activities. This here mentioned one, but I'll give another example. Xiaomi, the largest, I think, if not one of the largest mobile phone manufacturers from China, has just opened a factory that produces one phone per second. So each second that factory spits out one phone, each second. And in that factory, there are no production employees, only some maintenance folks. It operates 24/7, and the lights are off. And it's everything from parts into, at the end of the line, is your product in a box. So there are no people involved. They just have highly, highly advanced factories with no people. I was talking to a friend this week, and he had seen a video about the harbors, the port cities in China, because it's like, hey, they get less work or more work, whatever. He's seen video. He said there are no people there. Everything with containerized transport and everything. You don't see any human being on those ports. And so the narrative about is like, we, US or Western Europe, we're going to take back our stuff, we're going to do it ourselves, doesn't add anything to new labor thing, because everything is totally, fully automated. New WEF leader, look at this.
Yeah, so Klaus Schwab was apparently kind of taking some money for himself, so got kicked out fast. And this guy, I think I mentioned in my book that I wrote in 2017, but he was with Nestle, and I remember watching like a documentary, and he was like, they take all the water for like pennies on the dollar, or just rob it from cities, and they're charging people like, $2 a bottle of water or something like that. And he's basically saying it's a privilege. You shouldn't have, it's not a human right to have water. So this is the scumbag now that's coming in looking after this. So he's evil. You just listen to him. He's not a nice guy. But one of the interesting thing with this picture, for those that are watching, you can see his eye is red, and it looks like a lizardy kind of thing. And when I saw it, I was like, that's interesting, because I watched a video with Mr. Beast recently, where he was in some African country, and he was creating like tables and stuff for the kids, but also food. And Tony Robinson is kind of well known for feeding 2 million people a year. And he came on to kind of say what you're doing is brilliant. He had the exact same red eye. I don't know, is there a correlation or what it's about? But I remember at one stage there was the Black Eye Club, and so that's two I've seen. It just looks very weird. It looks kind of spooky. I don't know what's going on with that. But regarding this guy, yeah, I wouldn't trust him at one bit.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a, well, just judging from the picture, it doesn't look like a guy where you would have your celebrations and eating a meal together and to have fun with. Yeah, so it
He's
certainly
not
does.
invited.
No, he's not going to be in the table. Well, the next item is yesterday I attended an online symposium, and literally it's not my title, it's called The Battle for the Brain, which is happening all the time, and we are exposing every week what is happening there. I will go quickly over a few slides, which I made a copy of yesterday. Yeah, more than 5 hours. So a lot of information, really excellent information. But the slides will be shared in a few days on the site technocracy.news/the-brain. So technocracy.news/the-brain. I highly encourage you at least to have a look and go quickly over the slides, well, by the end of next week. What I wanted to share with you is, why is it called the battle for the brain? Here's a slide which is called the known knowns, where there are many, many tools which are used to influence you to, but basically what they say, it's to control you. So it's not like all these neurotechnical use, they're for your health. Yes, some of them can be used for your health, but most of them are used to control you. Yeah. And what it says, it's always a combination of some wearable. Well, yeah, think about, yeah, the Apple phone, or, yeah, what we discussed before is like your AirPods or thing. It's a combination with genetic engineering, which is happening all the time with the spraying, and nanomaterials, which at the moment are through your food, through the drinking water, through the vaccines. That's a combination of this thing which they're using to control you. And what it says is that the conditions are ripe for abuse of unaccountable technological power. And they openly state is that we want to connect humans, human brains with AI. And that is not only which you might say, well, it's something which we're going to use for the military because we want super soldiers. No, this is happening in the medical, in lifestyle, and also in policy domains. So why are they doing this? And how are they doing this? And what is called, generally speaking, it is social engineering. It's called social engineering because they want to regulate social behavior. Now you might say, but it is our behavior. We're talking about us. Eh? We're talking about we want to induce docility, passivity, and obedience. By the way, folks, this is already happening. Look at young folks. Look at people who are all the time on their phone. Yeah? They don't have much energy. Yeah? They're totally influenced already.
They don't know what's going on in the world either. That's the other thing regarding the spraying and everything and the jab. They've jabbed to the hilt. It's like I'm shocked at the different levels that you have. They've been conditioned.
Yeah, they don't even know this is like, well, before I call, I just said this, like, we had some rain yesterday and today, and I was happy because it's been extremely dry for the last couple of months, and I was like, that's not good. And I was talking with some people who run farms. I said, well, there's finally some rain. Yeah, they're really happy, like some rain. But a lot of these folks, if you mention like, when was the last time there was rain, or is the rain okay? They have no clue at all. But they can also use these technological devices to inflict pain, debility, torture, or even death. Yeah? they call it energy weapons. They get everything. They can influence you from a distance. So that is not good. But the interesting thing, which I heard throughout, there were 4 presentations yesterday. It's clear that the military, the guys in charge, the elites, they don't have a full grasp of what our human brain is. In this slide, it says one of the greatest mysteries in science and medicine. So they're doing a lot of research, like with neuroscience and everywhere, and people are like, how is the brain operating, and what's the brain? And a discussion which I'm having also is like people are mixing up the brain and the mind, and what is the mind and what's the brain and what does what, and they're making some comparisons like your brain is like a processor, like a computer, and the mind is the data to a certain extent, yeah, or your DNA, that's your computer code. To a certain extent, that is correct, but there are a lot of things happening, like the mysteries. Is it like, well, near-death experiences or orbs or UFOs? There are a lot of things happening which the intelligence services, the military, a lot of people, they don't even know. Yeah? So that is a good thing, because if they would 100% understand how our brain works, they could 100% control us. But there's a very, very large percentage of mind versus brain, which we don't know, which I think, well, makes it an interesting area for research, but at the same time, it makes it like, that's good, because if we would know everything, they would totally control us. So this, I think it's good news that they don't know. And the summary here, this seminar battle was organized by Patrick Wood, who is from Technocracy, the news. He has been involved in this for 40 years, folks, 40. So the guy typically talks about it, and he says that the government, they spend millions of man hours and billions of dollars, and they still don't know what consciousness is and how it works. Yeah. Yeah, and the more we know about the brain, literally meaning your physical lump of meat inside of your head, but the less they understand the mind. And remember that the goals, the product with you, they're trying to influence your mind, but a lot of it is inadequate and incapable. But that creates a lot of damage to people, because they think how things work, but on the way they create a lot of damage. And by the way, you might think it's like, oh, this is totally new. A long time ago, C.S. Lewis wrote a book, The Abolition of Man, and that's he already mentioned. Patrick Wood mentioned, and that was new. He said the term of technocracy, meaning that the guy's technology running the world, running us. That terminology, how old do you think it is, Roy? When first appeared that name, technocracy?
50 years ago, maybe.
You're not even close. It was in 1932. Yeah, so Patrick has found everything around it, and official documents were, well, it doesn't mean it didn't happen earlier, but he found official document from 1932. So these things which are happening, which we think are happening now, they're close to 100 years ago. Is like people were already preparing the things. Yeah. So the good news was, well, and still is that they don't know everything about us. Well, we don't know either. But the good news is that I think it will prevent our total impact.
So I think that's all for today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, as always, thoroughly enjoyed it. So you can find Arnold on braingym.fitness. You find me on roycollin.com, or scan the QR code, and be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and comment. Let us know what other things you can discuss. And also, we have a donation button to help us with our costs, because a lot of hours go into the preparation of this. Until next week, take care.
Bye.